What's up, guys, and welcome to FPL WildCats Live. Thank you so much for joining us on this Christmas special. Hopefully you can notice the screen's looking a bit more Christmassy, especially with all the outfits that everyone is rocking as well. So welcome along. Please do share this link out, the stream out to everyone, so more people can come and join us on this special festive occasion. We have, of course, got the regulars with us, and you can see that we do have a special guest as well, but as Nim's the one that does all the work behind the scenes on that, I will pass over to her to do the introductions.
Yeah, thanks, Jay, and welcome everyone to our last show before Christmas. Ooh, and the last of 2018, actually. We will be back with you, though, in 2019 with just as many Salah debates and some very more exciting guests. But right now, I guess we better get on with how we got on in Game Week 16 and welcome our special guest, who is David Mundy, editor at Fantasy Football Scout. So welcome, David. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It's good to be on, especially on a festive episode, so you can have a bit of fun.
Now, this week seems shaped by those who own Salah and those who didn't own Salah. So tell us, which side of the coin did you fall on and how did you get on in Game Week 17?
Yeah, so I had Salah, so that's why I'm still smiling. And I captained him as well, so it went as well as it could have done. And I was basically torn between Salah and Kane, which is a weird one because I feel like that's what the debate was last season, was just every week was Salah versus Kane, and we haven't really had that much this year. And I do obviously consider myself quite lucky to have gone with Salah, because had I gone with Kane, I'd be staring at a horrible game week. So I had 84 points overall, of which literally half of that was Mo Salah. And basically, I went with Salah mainly because I looked at the oppositions, like sort of that they were playing, and it was Bournemouth for Salah and Leicester for Kane. And Bournemouth just in the last couple of weeks had kind of tailed off defensively. And basically, to show you how much of a stat man I am, I went in the Fantasy Football Scout members area, had a look at how many shots Bournemouth have been conceding in recent weeks, and it was actually more than Burnley. And Burnley had been the whipping boys that everyone had been targeting this year. So I figured, if anyone can get below them, then they stick the captaincy on him. So I did, and never looked back. And then elsewhere, I had Richarlison and Luca Dean for Everton. So Monday night was very nice. I had Doherty as well. So I mean, just kind of everything went right, even outside of Salah. So I've had two incredible weeks in a row, and somehow I'm now 7K in the whole world, which is just mad. My aim for the season was maybe finish top 50K, but I don't know. I'm maybe setting my sights on the top prize now. If I'm top 10K at this stage. So yeah, no, I'm enjoying it at the moment. So yeah.
Fabulous stuff. Well, from the highs of David, I think I'm not really sure who to go to first here, but I'll probably head over to Kurt next and the dashing lows, because as we all know, Kurt has been a Salah dodger from the start of the season. So Kurt, this is it, mate. This is,
I've been waiting.
Sorry, there's some technical
16
difficulties. I don't think I can answer that question.
Only 16 game weeks waited.
I think you better tell us how you got on, really, because there'll be a lot of people in your position.
Well, for the first time in, I think, 3 years, I actually qualified for the Cup.
Wow.
Yeah, just about. I think it's this sort of time must just be rubbish for me. I got 48 points. It was dreadful. Everything went wrong that could have gone wrong. Apart from my captaincy pick, I had Aubameyang captain, so 5 to 10 is all right. Hazard was my vice because I thought he always turns up in the big games, got 2 assists. Besides that, nothing. Mane, doesn't look too good now, does it? I think this is nice dashing of humble pie. But no, it's just a poor game week. Players not performing. Sane taken off before 60 minutes in an unlucky but poor performance from Man City, you could say. No real clean sheets anywhere. Players rested, not playing. And I think I only had 10 people playing as well, which didn't really help. Wilson was still in my starting 11 and he was out injured, obviously. But no, not really much to go in. Chicharito saved me. Richarlison got me a few more points, and it just about squeezed me over to get into the Cup, which is probably why it's about time. It's been for 5 or 6 game weeks late, but I finally activated my wild card, and fingers crossed I don't waste it. But no, the game week went as smooth as I could have predicted, which is rubbish.
And so you tell us now that you've bought Salah in that wild card.
I would never be able to live it down. That'd be on my gravestone. Bought in Salah after dodging him for 16 game weeks. Now, I've done some interesting things, but I did actually, to be fair, I did actually look at bringing Salah in, but nothing that could have done. I could have done. Well, I thought there were so many things I could have done, but Hazard, Sane, and Mane, I think all had to go for me to be happy with bringing Salah in, and also other players. So I weaken my team dramatically, even if it is for a 21-point scoring Hazard. So yeah, you win and you lose, but what can I do? I haven't got him, so I just move on and cry, really.
Okay, I'll pass you over to Brett next. Brett, how did you do, bud?
Cool. Yeah, hey guys. Much better week for me this week. Starting to build a bit of momentum now after quite a bad run in a few previous weeks. But I was one of the fortunate ones to captain Salah, luckily. So I say it was fortunate because, like David said, it was very, very close that I very nearly captained Lacazette. That was the kind of 50-50 I was weighing up. I brought Lacazette in for a 1-week punt because the idea was I could have brought in Kane, but he was away to Leicester. He had that big Champions League game. So I thought, well, Lacazette's at home to Huddersfield. I'll cover that fixture instead and then get Kane in the following week. And as David said as well, Leicester's defensive stats were actually quite good going into that game. So I wasn't actually fancying Kane that much anyway. And I brought Lacazette in, and I just thought, well, I've already got Lacazette, who's a bit of a differential. Maybe it's too much of a risk to captain him as well. I thought owning him was maybe enough. And it was partly being the early kickoff with Salah as well that I did have some reservations, because it's nothing worse than captaining a player the first game of the weekend, But yeah, I just thought, well, Bournemouth, they're not in great form, but they're playing well, but they are conceding goals at the same time, and it was nice to finally get some points from Salah, because he's a player that I have captained a lot this season. I keep captaining him, and we get the 8 points here and there, but to finally get a big haul. I mean, I owned Hazard for his 20-pointer, didn't captain him. I owned Sterling for a 21-pointer, didn't captain him. So it was nice to finally get it plumb on the right captain choice this week, And that was half my score, basically. So I had 85 and 42 from Salah. And nice. Snodgrass as well, bringing in Snodgrass and getting a goal was quite nice too. Brought him in as an enabler to fund Kane / Lacazette. And to deliver straight away was pretty good, and with some good fixtures coming up. I don't like him as much as Felipe Anderson, but he is 2 million cheaper. So a much better game week, and a shout out to Kolasinac as well for 8 points. I brought him in like 2 weeks ago as a little bit of a punt, and he's done all right so far. So that was good. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, before we pass on to Jay, I'll tell you how I got on, because I'm wearing the same hat as Kurt, which can only mean one thing, that I may have sold a certain someone as well. I got 55 points in total this game week, one above the average, but technically 51 because it was -4. Another red arrow for me, 2 in a row now. Fabianski got me just the 1 point, hoping for a bit more over the Christmas period from him. Laporte and Obi-Wan just with the 1 point, and obviously Wilson being injured. Robson owners, we finally got a little bit of reward for sticking with him over Trent with his assist and clean sheet. Alonso, surprisingly, getting his clean sheets. I'm glad I'd stuck with my kind of premium defender there, I suppose. Doherty actually scored when I played him rather than when I benched him, which was nice because it was very much needed this week. Sterling's been fairly disappointing for me since I bought him. He's really not done very much, so kind of hoping he gets a bit better going forward. Richarlison surprisingly had similar stats, I think, to Sterling in that game week, but Richie took his one shot on target and converted for the 7 points. And here's where it all goes down the pan a little bit. I tortured myself over my transfers this game week, and I had Kane goggles on, so Need some glasses like Jay. So my idea was to transfer Salah and Arnautovic out for Kane and Anderson. As you can see on screen, I did actually do that transfer. So yes, I sold Salah when he got the hat-trick. So I joined Kurt on the dark side, and I don't like it, Kurt. Don't like it.
There's a reason I'm ranked 2.5 million in the world. You should never listen to me.
I like to go a bit batshit crazy at least once in a season, and I feel like I've freedomed him now. I let go of him for -12 last season, and that's when he started going nuts for several goals in the game. And I just feel like I've done the same this time. What I did last season was get him almost immediately back in. So at the moment, if he continues in that form, I'll be doing the same. What I do want to say though is that I did switch Salah for Anderson, and Anderson did halve, if not a little bit better, Salah's points for a lot less money. So he did make that a little bit less painful than what it could have been. Aubameyang started and got his assist for 5 points, but it's Kane's benching that really done me in, because unlike some of you guys, I did actually captain him, and if he had stayed on the bench, I would have got Richarlison's vice captaincy points, which would have kind of covered Salah's hat-trick, but not for captainers, obviously, but at least, those who had Salah but didn't captain him. Or if Kane had come on and actually done something, other than just run around and make up the team for a couple of minutes. But I never really considered Salah for captain. I think this season I've barely gone near him for captaincy because I've been too worried that he'd be, that he'd really do too much for me. And I've always had better options in my team. So for that reason, it seemed like a good reason to transfer him out. And I probably would have waited one more week, only that Arnautovic injury kind of, I think it pushed me really, because I thought, I don't really know who I want for that position other than Kane. I had to complete Kane goggles, just was like, I really want Kane there. Otherwise, I don't really know who to get there. So yeah, luckily, because I probably would have gone Jimenez otherwise, and that was,
How are you feeling about the transfer now then, Nim, now that you've had a few days to reflect?
Yeah, okay, actually. I think it's easy to really beat yourself up, and I really did initially. But my thought is I'm going to give it this weekend and then reassess, because it is just a case of reversing what I've done effectively if I really want him back. So, and I can look at Kane this weekend, I can look at Alba this weekend, and I can decide which one of those I want to drop right down low, and maybe have another look at who to drop them all the way down to, and then choose one of my midfields then to push back up. So not all is lost. I'm trying not to panic and think, oh God, that's it, he's been sold and there's no way back. Do you know what I mean? Because there is. And I don't have to tear up my team to do it, so yeah. So that's me. And I'll pass you on to Jay, who I know did keep Salah. So
that's why I don't have a hat on.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of in the middle, because I didn't captain him, but I still had him. So I was kind of in that middle ground of, I was happy I didn't get rid of him, but I wasn't happy that I put my captaincy armband on Aubameyang. And I think a lot of it was to do with the fact that there was so little time between game weeks, because I was so focused on getting in Aubameyang or Kane and trying to figure out which one I should go for. And future plans after I let Salah go after Bournemouth, which was the plan, it's now no longer the plan. I just completely missed the point of looking at Salah against Bournemouth. Like David said, I had planned to captain Salah against Bournemouth from about game week 12, 13, and then just because it was such a rush getting everything done, getting content out as well, of course, I just didn't put it on him. I was so fixated on Aubameyang by the time
Are
I brought
you
him
blaming your viewers for not
Yes.
captaining Salah?
Yes.
Oh.
If I wasn't
Tough
making
road.
you guys content, I'd have a higher rank. No, I'm joking. I actually got 71 points though, so it's a pretty good total overall. I did see a rise in rank, now 27,000 ish. I was impressed with Felipe Anderson, who I'd also brought in. Doherty keeps returning for me. Alonso, there's the argument of if you get rid of Alonso, then it's going to be a struggle to get him back in. But the plans I have for my midfield, I'm just looking at Alonso going, Robertson could do the job that Alonso's doing for me. And my main problem is 2 Wolves defenders. I don't want 2 of them. Doherty's the one I want. So overall happy. Aubameyang was the captain. Happy that he wasn't subbed off when the changes were made to give him a bit more creativity in that game against Huddersfield. And I'm happy he hasn't started in the Europa League. So fingers crossed he turns out to be a better choice than Kane, because I'm very unlikely to get Aubameyang and Kane in, because I think the points are really in midfield with the likes of Salah, Sterling, Hazard. So that's kind of where my focus is for my team moving forward. Nice, short and sweet.
Good stuff, good stuff. Well, I've got a couple of questions here, so I'll ask one out initially and then we'll go out to the chat. So make sure you get your questions in the chats, guys. At Hindu Monkey's question is, if you have Salah, Wilson and no Spurs, is it worth taking a hit this week to take them out for Kane? So I'll pass over to you first, David. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think definitely first thing worth saying at Spurs is definitely worth having, because you just take a look at their fixtures and they're just really nice over the next couple of game weeks. So they're playing Burnley at home next. So just going back to what we're saying about whipping boys and teams that allow lots of chances, that's a great fixture to look at. They've got Everton away, whose defence seems to be crumbling. They've got Bournemouth, who we talked about as well. Wolves, who can't seem to not be able to keep clean sheets anymore. Cardiff, same thing. So yeah, absolutely, you've got to get some Spurs coverage. I definitely think that's what we've got to be looking at. But if you've got Salah and Wilson, I don't know if they're necessarily the people you take out. So, I mean, when I make transfers, it's not just about who you're getting in, it's about who you're getting rid of. And looking at, while I don't think I would necessarily captain Salah that many times over the next 5 game weeks, so you've got Man United, Wolves, Newcastle, Arsenal, and Man City. Newcastle's probably the only one I'd probably captain him in. I still fancy him to nick something in those games. So taking him out for a hit, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of tempting fate. So in that situation, I'd probably look at Son, because a lot of people have probably got someone like Richarlison, for example. Everton's fixtures are taking a bit of a turn. You could maybe, if you've got some money in the bank or whatever, do some other transfers to get Son in. Because I think Son is going to be the Spurs player to have for people who can't afford Kane, because over the Christmas period, I think they're going to use him as much as they can. Normally, they don't use him as much as they should, which I think we'd all agree with over the last few years. But he's obviously going to the Asian Cup sort of after about game week 21, sort of mid-January kind of time. And I kind of just get the feeling that Poch will just use him extensively over Christmas so he can rest maybe even Kane, but almost certainly rest people like Moura and Lamella, so that when Son does go off to this Asian Cup and be away for 2-3 weeks at the end of January, he's got fresh options. And Son's just in fantastic form. He's had more shots on target in the last 4 game weeks than Kane, partially because he started more games, but he has started the last 4. So there's kind of nothing about Son that tells me you shouldn't go for him. So if you're in that situation where you haven't got Kane and you're worried, I'd maybe go Son if it involved taking a hit to get Kane, because it'll save you so much money and you probably even match him. So that's what I'd do.
Yeah, and Brett, you were way too early for that party, weren't you, mate? You really were. He was on Sunny a few weeks ago.
Oh, really?
And yeah,
I had Son in like game week 4. I brought him in very, very early when he kind of, came back into the side. Obviously, he exactly. So he came back from the Asian Cup. Yeah, thanks. And Spurs were a bit out of sorts in the first 3 game weeks, and I thought, right, Son's coming back now. He had a good World Cup, and they obviously won the Asian Cup as well. So I thought, right, he's going to galvanise them. Brought him in really early. And I think that's because I just like him as a player and I've always loved him as an FPL option. So I had him from like game week 4 to 7. And he was still, Lamella was coming in. He was getting 60 minutes. He didn't really do the job, So I dropped him. And now it's Son time. Everyone's sort of talking about getting him in now, And fortunately, Yeah, and I'll probably have to go without him now again in this Burnley game, which is a shame. He's the one player I would like to get. I'm in a position where I have to get one Spurs player this week, and I planned with cash in the bank to get Kane this week. The only way I can get Son would be to drop the likes of Fraser or Richarlison, who I do like in as long-term options, and or take a hit, you know. And I've got Lacazette, who I don't really fancy. It was always going to be a 1 week punt, so I would like to get Kane. And the only thing with Son is I would be a little bit less. I'd be more scared to captain him, whereas Kane, I just feel more comfortable to put the armband on him, you know. So I just want that clear captain choice this week, and I just feel safe giving it to Kane. But I would love to own Son for this week. With Burnley, I mean, they got a 1-0 win last game week, albeit at home to Brighton, and Brighton are away from home, you know, not the most attacking of teams. But, you know, I don't know if you know, David, but in that game, like, did Burnley still concede a lot of chances in that one? I didn't even catch the highlights, to be fair, but
there weren't many.
Okay.
It wasn't a very good game. No, I mean, it was more, I mean, it was slightly better than usual, but it was generally more of the same. And they're still, I mean, anyone who has a membership to Fantasy Football Scout can go and have a look now that they're still in that same kind of region of the table for shots they're allowing. For me, they're still worth captaining people against and going all in on, especially in a week where, you know, there's not. I mean, Liverpool are playing Man United, for example. Exactly. Man City obviously are playing Everton, but of course Pep Roulette. I mean, you never know how you're going to get on with that. So
exactly.
I personally, I think the Burnley game is the one to look at. And I mean, obviously, you made an interesting point there that actually not everybody can get Son because maybe the midfield options don't work out. So I mean, I would say if you've got the cash in the bank and you can get Kane, I mean, I still think he's the preferable option. But you know, just it depends on your structure, doesn't it? Because I mean, I was able to get Kane because I got rid of Aguero, and I think that's what a lot of people did. But not everybody had Aguero because a lot of people went Sterling, perhaps. Went for a cheaper forward line. So, you know.
How dare they? Yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit of an Aguero fan here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it felt weird taking him out. I mean, taking Aguero out at any stage, even if he's injured, feels weird, doesn't it? So, but yeah, I think...
That's why I'm in this mess now. It's all Aguero's fault. If I didn't have to sell him, I wouldn't have thought about selling Salah. I probably wouldn't have even bothered with Kane.
This is a sign you should never betray Aguero. Even if he's injured, you should never betray Aguero.
That's it. Yeah, I'll upset my boyfriend now. Sorry, David. So
I mean, I was just gonna say Aguero. It's exciting though. It's exciting whenever someone who's highly owned gets injured because it just means that it breaks the template up. I love that. I think it's great. Sorry to sound like I'm enjoying other people's pain, but I just think it's really exciting when we all have to start kind of make our own decisions. So. Yeah, sorry.
So, lads, Kurt or Jay, do you have anything else to add to any of that?
I think everything's been said from my end.
Yeah, I'm on the Son bandwagon because I've gone Aubameyang. I looked at the two and I thought the way my team's structured, I wanted Aubameyang because price-wise, Aguero, Aubameyang, very similar in price. Kane was, of course, an upgrade. And I had Salah. So for me, it's Son. I need to get him in this game week, I feel. And
I watched Jay's video earlier and he must have said, I want to get Son about 10 times.
Exactly. It's all, I'm dreaming about it. How do I get Son in? Because there's no...
Oh, no, that's dangerous. That's what I did with Kane last week. It never ends well.
The easiest one is Sane, but I don't want to get rid of Sane. So I've got to upgrade Richarlison or Fraser or Anderson. I'm happy with Anderson right now. I've never really been okay with Richarlison in my team. I think it's just because I said I don't think his underlying stats. Yeah, I just had this kind of love-hate relationship with him where he's getting me points, but I still don't like him. So I mean,
probably because of last season. Absolutely ruined so many people last season.
That's it. He had a great start, and then suddenly he was off the boil. Everyone was like, "Don't worry, he'll be back. He'll be back," and then it just never happened. And it's the same manager, just a different club, and I'm like. So I think it's just me wanting him not to do well. But then when it came to it, I brought him in because he was one of the only options at the time. So I imagine I'll probably bring in Son for Richarlison just because I'll feel happy with my team. Even if it gets less points, I'll probably just feel happy with my team. So I'm on the Son bandwagon. I definitely think if you're not getting Kane in out of the options there, he is the one. Yeah. He's playing with a smile on his face. He looks like he's enjoying himself. So I think he's definitely one to bring in.
So did you get any Spurs cover, Kurt, in your wild card?
Well, here's the thing. I haven't yet.
Kurt, no Salah, no Spurs. What are you doing, mate?
I've done all the other stuff, and I've made a few other sort of suave choices. But the reason I've stopped at it was because the only way I can get him in is either to take Hazard out, and that's not an option. Hazard, hopefully, is back.
It's like your only player that you like playing, isn't he? If any good.
Exactly. You've also got Sane, but then is it worth taking? That's my only Man City player apart from Edison. And then the one I'm looking at mostly is Mane, which goes completely full circle on the whole Salah thing. I'm just completely giving up on Liverpool as well. So I'm in a weird sort of scenario, but at the moment I'm looking at him, I don't lose too much if I sell Mane. I looked at his recent performances and he's blanked in 5 of the last 6.
He looked really bad against Napoli as well. Like finishing wise, he was just terrible.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he doesn't really compare with Salah for sort of what he does on the pitch and how it's quantified. So yeah.
So, in other words, thank you everyone. I've just made the transfer for Son to come in. Just made the transfer. Fortunately, I've got my wild card active, so that's decided. Yes. To be fair, I didn't.
That's not broken transfer for everybody.
John's got to do it now as well.
I'm not sure I should bring him in now.
Jay, come on, do it.
I did my team for this next game week, and the other thing that was sort of a nail in the coffin is I had Mane on the bench, home to Man United. I'm thinking I just don't fancy him to do anything there. So I don't know why I waited so long to even bring Son in, but yeah, he's in now. So thank you all for helping me make the choice.
That's great. Thank you for cursing him because I don't own him. Okay. So I'll go over to Brett. We got any questions in the chat?
Yeah, loads of questions. One of the first ones that came in, it's a good question. It's from Varun. He wants to know about Lacazette. Is he a keep or sell now, given the fact that he started in the Europa League tonight? And they've got this Carabao Cup fixture as well against Spurs coming up. So what do we think? Is he a keep or sell? Jay, what do you reckon about Lacazette?
For me, he seems to have gone off the boil a bit, not as favoured as Aubameyang. The fact that he was the one that got taken off when Emery had to change things up against Huddersfield makes me think that Lacazette is the second choice. And
he is out of favour a bit now, isn't he?
Yeah, they just looked so much better when they had Mkhitaryan and was it Iwobi behind Aubameyang. So for me, if he seems like a very reactive manager, Emery, the fact that he's not been ahead before half time and then makes changes, 14 changes I believe he's made in the first half, which is more than all of the top 6 combined. So I feel like he's seen that in the Huddersfield game. I would imagine he's going to start with one up top in the next game. So I'm hoping that's Aubameyang, seeing as Aubameyang didn't play, Lacazette did. I just think for the Premier League, compared to the Europa League, it's always going to be Premier League first. And I think Aubameyang's the first choice. So for me, Lacazette isn't really an option. I don't really think there's anyone in that price range of 9 million where you really want to go. I think it's either the premium price choices or you go lower to like the 6 to 7 million pound choices. So for me, Lacazette is a sell.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a different spin on this, is that everyone's going from this from an FPL perspective, as in he only played 45 minutes in the last match. Well, he hasn't really been playing 90 minutes for a few matches now. I think Emery went out there to win the last match in the first half, knowing the busy fixtures that he had. So he started with the big guns up front, hoping that we'd get a few goals early and the game would be won, and he could then take Lacazette off at half time anyway to rest him. That being said, we didn't have the creativity, we didn't have the width, so he needed to bring on Iwobi and Mkhitaryan to do those things, and that's what got us the goals in the end. However, Lacazette did score, albeit offside, but he did score, and he has scored again tonight. I'm not sure what the score is now, but I know he did score a goal. Okay. So this is the thing. When you got him into your teams, you will have known that he probably wasn't playing 90 minutes anyway. And so then you've got to figure why you brought him in the first place, because he doesn't always need 90 minutes to return. Clearly is a lot of money for what he's getting. But then you could say that about a few players this season, especially until Salah went nuts, obviously. But we can get a bit wrapped up sometimes on the FPL perspective of things, like, for instance, loads of people went nuts when Kane didn't start. Well, obviously we know why that was. But then they were like, well, why bother bringing him on? Well, assumedly to keep him match fit,
Golden boot as well. He desperately wants to win that.
That as well. So
any chance he'll get.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
so,
other people's chances.
So I think, we can get a bit wrapped up in the FPL at times and not really kind of take a step back. As for Salah, 90 minutes was such an important match midweek, playing him 90 minutes when he had a hat-trick. I don't understand crazy Klopp, so I can't help you out there, I'm afraid.
So if you owned Lacazette this week, Nim, if
I
he
would
was in your
keep him
team,
one more week. I would keep him one more week and see what happens, because even if he doesn't start with 2 up top, he will come on. There isn't really much else. There isn't really many other striker options for Arsenal, and if
you can guarantee it'll be 0-0 at half time. It's Arsenal, so
exactly.
they'll have to bring him on.
We'll be losing, or it'll be 0-0. Yeah, exactly. So he'll have to come on at some point, and maybe then give it one more week. See, I mean, Aguero could be back this weekend. You might want to see Kane against Burnley if you don't own him. There's so many options. I think now is not the week to shift out somebody that costs quite a lot of money and a premium position. You might want to wait and see where you want to put that money to.
So what you're saying is that people in a position with Lacazette now, mostly 90% of people who own Lacazette won't have enough in the bank just out of nowhere to get Auber or Kane, for example. So you're saying maybe keep Lacazette for this week and then get the 2 free maybe to upgrade him the week after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Well put.
But you see,
what about you, Kurt?
Sorry, go on, Kurt. You can have yours, Kurt. I can add mine at the end.
Okay. So I was fine to let you talk. I'm sort of on both sides of the fence. I don't own him, fortunately. I've got Aubameyang, and I just looked at both of them on Transfermarkt. Lacazette's played 28 minutes in 2 games, and now he's starting. And the worst thing is that this game means nothing. If they win, lose, or draw, they're still going into the next round. It's a dead rubber. So I find it interesting because of, you think, and Arsenal are in a position where they can press on a bit now, and they haven't been in that position for some time under Wenger. Did they need to use the big guns in this game rather than rest them and go absolutely mad on a rather shoddy-looking Southampton team, even with the new manager, haven't looked anywhere near Premier League standard? I think I'd worry from this week, but like everyone said, on the flip side of that, he'll come on. He'll come on, and you give him one chance, he'll score. It's not as if you need to create a chance. He's good at certain things. You give him a chance, and it's inside the box. You put your house on him scoring it. So if he only gets 45 minutes against a team like Southampton, that could mean 3 goals. You never know. Not that I don't like Southampton anyway. They're just not very good.
To me, you couldn't ask for a much better fixture in the scheme of things. It's not a bad week to keep him for sure. Like I explained earlier, I probably will be dropping him. It's not completely because I don't fancy him or he's not going to do well. It's more because I had that plan to bring Kane in as my strong captain choice this week. But look, if you haven't got that money in the bank and you've got Lacazette against Southampton, it's not the worst fixture to own him for, So it could be a game that even with 45 minutes he does get a goal or an assist. So
well, that's it. I mean, I had Aubameyang right at the beginning. I started off with him, and then I sold him because he wasn't starting. And then look what happened. He started coming on, and whenever I sell them, they start scoring.
I had Lacazette in my team at the start of the season as well.
Oh, nice.
So, and I sold him for the same reason. So, I mean, the same could happen. I sold him game week 3 or 4, something like that, and that was when he had his big long run of 8 games in a row where he started them all and pretty much scored in all of them. So, I echo that absolutely. With a player like him, you never know. I feel like Emery just doesn't know what his best 11 is yet, which is probably why they're not normally in front at half time. So it's a team in transition. As much as Southampton's in transition, so is Arsenal. So lots of factors in play.
Yeah, you can forget almost that we're under new management and, and all of these things, really we're kind of super exceeding what we should be doing this season. Really.
Doing much better, much quicker than I expected, to be honest.
Yeah.
New manager.
And I think when you look at Aubameyang and Lacazette, you almost have to look at them like a City asset. If you're going to own them, maybe you just have to ride out the the highs and the lows and the roulette.
Yeah. There'll be occasional times where they don't pick up scores, but you think most of the time they are going to come back with returns. So you can't act reactively on just one game week, when the next game week after that they could get double figures.
Yeah, they got Burnley the week after as well, so that is a nice fixture for Arsenal. Southampton and Burnley in the next two.
Yeah, Brighton and Fulham as well.
Exactly. If you do hold Lacazette, and even if you're going to be against the Burnley game, it's a nice one to own him for as well. It is hard to drop him with these fixtures in mind,
Yeah. Jay, you had something to say?
Well, the only thing I was going to add is, if you look at your whole team and season long, Lacazette is in an awkward price point where I just don't feel like if it does go wrong, you have a nice, easy transfer. So if Aubameyang goes wrong, you've got Aguero. You've got players in that kind of price bracket. Midfield-wise, Sterling, Hazard, you've got nice, easy swaps. Any premium player, Kane, Salah, it's easy to downgrade. Lacazette
no love for Firmino, Jay?
Well, that's it. You've got Firmino, you've got Vardy, and you've got Morata in like roughly around that same price.
And Giroud.
So he's down to 7.7, so
wow.
I'm
Rashford
saying,
as well, Rashford.
Again, those are drops though, because then you're changing the complete structure, because Rashford is 6.9. So I think there's a lot of value.
You have to go with it, don't you?
I think there's so much value in the 6 million, the 7 million, that do you need a 9 million? Go and cover the premium price, especially with someone like Kane or Auba. If you're going with Arsenal, I'd personally go Auba. But you could go Kane with his fixtures. Kane is clearly the favoured striker at Spurs, whereas you don't know for definite who is going to be the favoured striker long term for Arsenal. So I'm almost talking myself into Kane right now, but I just
get Son.
No, I'm still going Son. Remember my video from earlier. I want Son.
Buy him. Do it now, Jay. So you can't change your mind.
No, because last time I did a transfer on stream, it was Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I believe that was the right decision.
Don't tell me they're bad now. I've already done mine.
But you've got a wild card. You can change it. It's fine. But yeah, I got very unlucky with Trent because he got injured, didn't he, in the Napoli game. I was looking at the underlying stats thinking, I think Trent can do just as well as Robertson season long, and now he's got injured. And of course,
especially with Gomez getting injured, we thought we were in the luck there. The Trent owners were like, yes, I've got the one who can't get rotated now, and now he's gone and got injured as well.
Yes, but because I want Son, I can't just bring Robertson back in for Trent. So
yeah. Just quickly for the original poster of the question about Lacazette, someone else just messaged in the chat. Richard says Lacazette's been subbed off now around the 65th minute. Yeah, and he scored, so it's still 1-0. He scored and he's been subbed early, so there's a bit of positive.
I just have a bit of a feeling for Lacazette on the weekend. Don't know why.
Oh, don't do that
why.
To me now.
You have a feeling, but do you own him?
I have him in a lot of draft teams, okay. And he's starting. So I will be playing him. Okay. At Enstein07 has 2 questions for us tonight. The first is, should he find a way to get Salah back? Which is also my question, so we're asking for a friend. And is it time to ditch Alonso? So, Kurt, you never had Salah, so what about the Alonso question?
Oh, I had a good answer. To be fair,
go on
Salah's
then. Go with you.
Salah's given himself, a lot of people a bit of dilemmas, especially people like you, Nim. If you've just taken him out and he scored a hat trick, you're thinking, oh no. And I think it's a tough one, but if it's easy enough to get him back in, then yeah. But some people, like for me to get him in, I would have had to completely undo my team. So if I'd have done my wild card last week, brought him in, or got rid of him, sorry, to get him back in, I'm looking at a minus sort of 16 almost to get him back in to have a decent team. So that's the dilemma I think people have with Alonso. I've seen this posted on Twitter quite a few times. I don't get why people aren't sticking with Alonso, are questioning what he's going to do, because he gets attacking return, 1 goal and 7 assists. Granted, not too many recently, but bearing in mind he got 7 goals and 2 assists last year, and that was in the entire season. We are not even halfway through. So if by statistics, he could even get 2 goals, 14 assists by the end of the season. We haven't even gone through halfway. That adding, he's got 8 clean sheets as well. He's almost got 100 points. He's down to break his points tally of 177 that he had in the 16-17 season. So it frustrates me a bit when people aren't really sticking with him, because, like I say, we're halfway through the season, and Chelsea as well have been a team with a new manager, playing a new style. They played 5 at the back, now they're playing 4 at the back. They played very sort of defensive, counter-attacking football under Conte. Now they're possession-based, looking to go on the front foot, quick attacks. So I think there's still a bit of progressing to do, which can only mean good things for the clean sheets and the attacking return. So I'd say stick with Alonso if you still got him. I think it's mental to get rid of him.
Okay, and David, would you like to answer the Salah question, maybe?
Well, I think it's obviously a very complicated one anyway, but I think it kind of, I mean, the way I'm looking at the Salah situation is if you've still got him, then I probably wouldn't move him on. But if you've just got rid of him, then I probably wouldn't get him back. And that's not even me just trying to make sure everybody stays off my player. I promise that's not what I mean. The first things first, I don't think we're going to see another 21-point haul for a while. And I think that was, it's a one-off in the sense that I don't think we're going to see him score many hat-tricks in the next couple of game weeks. I mean, I think he is a good player, and I think he will get returns, but it won't be on that sort of level. Just kind of going back to what we said at the top of the show about Bournemouth's defensive statistics, they were awful. They were the worst in the league over the previous 4 game weeks. So actually, for those who were in the know, that was always going to happen. But when you look at the teams coming up, none of those teams really offer the same potential. So Man United, I can't see him scoring a hat-trick against them. Wolves have actually been quite tight defensively. They've let it slip recently, but, not in a big way. They're not getting thrashed every week. Newcastle, I mean, they're allowing a lot of shots, but the thing with Benitez teams is they're just very good at getting in the way of them because Benitez is quite organised. Arsenal, Man City, again, these are all teams that I probably wouldn't captain him in. So it's not really worth breaking your team to get a player like that back in, because the reason you obviously got rid of him for a reason, as you guys will, I mean, one of you's not had him all season for the reason of price. And then obviously you've moved him on because you looked at other options, because there are probably better. I'm going to captain Kane more often in the next 5 game weeks than I'm going to captain. So, if you've got rid of him, then I just think reversing it based off that one game is probably a bit short-sighted. So you're probably better off just sticking with the other options you've got and playing the fixtures a bit more, because you have to nail those captains. That's the key. If you're going to get through a period where we think Salah might do all right, if you've got some really nice captain options, like Hazard looks quite nice in some of those Chelsea fixtures, Kane does as well, the Man City boys as well, they all look like much better captain options than Salah. So I think that's got to be the bottom line, is you got rid of him because you thought you weren't going to captain him, so stick by it.
Cool. Yeah, I did actually know a friend of a friend who triple captained Salah.
Oh, wow.
Weekend. I mean, that's some brave points there, right there. Fair play. I never even considered captaining, let alone triple captain.
Well, that's the thing. If you've not considered captaining, and then even for Bournemouth, then you're definitely not really going to think about captaining him for some of those other matches. So I just think it's not worth. Transfers are precious and hits are precious. Spend them on something else rather than reversing.
I think it was just that he just, like we were saying about Son, he's enjoying his football so much and he looks so happy. And the thing with Son, even though he was Salah, even though he's like returning most weeks, a goal here or assist there or whatnot, I was too scared to captain him because it was a bit of a case of, well, I've got people like Hazard and Aubameyang and people like that who were hauling, and they were really looking as if they were enjoying life where Salah scores and you're just like, scored.
I still maintain that maybe Salah sold himself on FPL, which is probably why he doesn't look that happy.
He knows I sold him, and it's just like, I can't do it to her. Can't do it to her. Yeah. I'm gonna rub it in her face for sure. Okay. Do we have any questions in the chat there, Brett?
Yeah, there's one here from Notorious Nerd, and he wants us to chat a little bit about Hazard. Obviously, arrested again tonight for the Europa League, as he has been most of the season. He wants to know if he's a good captain pick away to Brighton. What do we think, Jay, on Hazard?
I mean,
do you own Hazard, by the way?
I've got rid of Hazard. I got rid of him for Sane. For me, there was a period where I wasn't too sure about the Chelsea side, which is why I took him out.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to be gelling very well with either Morata or Giroud. So I was just thinking, there's Man City players that I could be owning. Man City are getting big score lines, whereas it's not necessarily happening for Chelsea. That being said, Hazard is clearly a quality player. He just seems to be, for me, whenever I own him, quite patchy in form. There'll be periods where I have him and he's scoring like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and then there's that period where he isn't scoring for a while. And I feel more secure having a player from, say, a Man City, who I believe are going to continue to score lots of goals in games, where he doesn't even necessarily have to play that well, and will probably still get some points from either getting an assist or a goal. Whereas I think Hazard is still, to me, the main man at Chelsea, which is good if he has one of those performances where he just runs the show and gets a couple of goals or a couple of assists. But when he doesn't seem to turn up, I then look at that Chelsea side and think, well, no one's going to set it on a plate for Hazard to score a goal. It's Hazard setting it on a plate for someone else. And he doesn't have that kind of greed to his play sometimes, which I kind of like in my players, where they get a chance in front of goal, and instead of looking at the easy cut back to someone else, they go for goal themselves and get the more points. So Hazard's definitely a captaincy option. If you own him, I definitely wouldn't be getting rid of him for the fixtures he's got. But just for me, he wasn't someone I was happy to keep in my side still.
What do you reckon?
And sorry, I was just going to say, Kurt, clearly you have him in your team. And thought process. You're about to ship him out now.
Yeah.
Just sold him for
another live transfer.
I'm going to start getting obsessed with live transfers. Just start live streaming myself making transfers. No, it's an interesting one. I do like Hazard. I think this season, granted, the start of the season, it was the would he stay or would he go scenario. At the moment, he's looking all right. He had a bit of a lull, but he's back in form. My problem is that he's facing off against a team that will most likely sit back and try and soak up the pressure and not allow Hazard to get in between and do what he does best, which is look phenomenal, which I think is potentially where Hazard, I'd say, looks least likely is going to score points. Hazard is brilliant at dribbling around people, and if teams leave a bit of space, so like Man City, for example, leave a bit of space for him to walk into, he'll grab assists. And if he's coming up against a team that is just sitting on the edge of their 18-yard line, he's constantly getting the ball, looking towards the goal and thinking, oh, what can I do here? And the ball will get passed sideways. And I think he's done that in the past as well. But there's also the option, if Brighton go forwards, potentially counter-attacks early, gets a goal, and it opens the game up. For me, I won't be captaining him, but I'm sticking with him because at any point in the game, he's got a potential just to dribble around 5 players and put it in. And that's what I like.
And Morata went off injured tonight, which means Giroud will get more game time at Chelsea.
I do prefer him playing with Giroud. I think he looks better that way.
I think everybody does.
Play off.
I think
nothing against Morata, but
I think all his goals have come when Giroud's been on the pitch. I don't know if that's correct, but I think every time he's played with
large
Giroud,
number, definitely.
Yeah, the majority of his goals for sure. I mean, I sold Hazard this game week, actually, game week 16, the one just gone. Obviously against Man City, which I don't think anyone expected that kind of result, you know. And it's interesting because we streamed about 3 weeks ago and we were all, I think a lot of us owned Hazard, and we were like, you know what? He's the talisman. He's not playing he's not in the Champions League. He's getting rested for the Europa League. It's great over Christmas that he hasn't got such a busy schedule. So we really talked him up, and then all of a sudden we've all kind of dropped him, you know. And I think that's because Chelsea, Chelsea just seemed a bit out of sorts in general. They weren't inspiring me the last few games, having watched them, you know. So it's not that Hazard wasn't playing well; it's that Chelsea as a whole were just kind of dropping off. Like Sarri looked a bit stressed if things weren't quite going right for them. So and I thought, well, Man City, I didn't see them winning against Man City. And then when I see away to Brighton for any player, I just hate that fixture. I always think, oh, it's Brighton. You know, they're always organised. Especially when you play at Brighton Stadium. You know, so I thought, well, there's 2 game weeks there that I don't feel too bad about not owning Hazard. You know, and there's a few away fixtures. But you know, he got 2 assists against City, and now it's like, well, he's still a great option. You know. Paul in the chat mentions that Hazard hasn't scored in like 7 game weeks now, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I don't think if I owned him, you know, with Spurs playing Burnley and Arsenal playing Southampton, I would always have a player probably from one of those to captain over Hazard. You know, it's hard to think that Hazard would be my best captain option there. You know, so a good week to own him and to keep him now for the next few fixtures because he's got Man City out of the way. And if that's what your gut is telling you, then go for it. But I think I wouldn't captain him away to Brighton. I just don't like that fixture for anyone, really.
Yeah, they're just a different animal at home, aren't they? They're rubbish away, and they're quite good at home.
Absolutely.
The funny thing I think about Hazard, he's probably the player I'm most scared about not owning over the next couple of weeks. And he's probably, if I were to get rid of Salah, he would be who I'd get. And the funny thing is that I've been guilty of saying this as well. We've been saying he's creating loads of chances, but everyone around him sucks. Like, you know, Morata's rubbish. Giroud had been a bit off the ball. Giroud doesn't really score many goals, you know. No. Pedro and Willian, we didn't know who was starting, you know, all sorts of things like that. Tactically, they're looking a bit odd. So the fact that he was creating loads of chances, we thought, well, there's no one there to finish him off. Last 3 game weeks, 4 assists. So clearly someone is. So, you know, yeah. And David Luiz as well.
Incredibly. David Luiz.
So, I mean, with the games that got coming up, if you've got him, definitely hold him. And in a few weeks' time, I may have him back. So,
yeah.
In the chat as well, just quickly, Mr. Job says Hazard got 3 goals against them last season. So I guess he's talking about Brighton. So,
yes, that's right. Yeah. That's when he burned me. That's the other problem with Hazard. Is so many people have history, and that was the game he burned me last year. I held him throughout like the whole of January last year when I didn't have Salah. It was the one period I didn't have Salah. And I thought Hazard was going to make it out for me, and I eventually lost patience. Sold him the exact game week that he bagged the hat trick in the opening game week, the opening game of the game week, and you just think, oh wow. I mean, it's equivalent to what happened with Salah this week. You know, it's the opening game of the game week, and it
makes me want to make
dead
no
and
transfers.
It just makes you want to give up. It just makes you think, do you know what? I'm going to follow the other games. I just can't believe he's done that to me with his cheeky. He probably just did his cheeky smile up to the camera at the end of the game. So, you know, it's like.
Well, before it was quite a luxury because we didn't have Kane or Aubameyang as options in the first 8 to 10 game weeks. So there was lots of teams like myself with Sterling, Hazard, and Salah, and it was like, well, this is great. You know, I can afford all 3 and going light up top. But then once Kane and Aubameyang came into the frame and everyone was jumping on those, it was like, well, someone's got to make way. Raheem Sterling's just out of this world at the time. Salah is Salah. And I was a bit too scared to get rid of Salah because every time I watch him, even when he wasn't getting big numbers, he was still always getting one-on-ones with the keeper and just near misses. And I thought, well, Hazard was just 3rd place out of those 3 for me. So he just
Alonso
had to be the make way. I do have Alonso as well, yeah.
So when you have Alonso, you feel more comfortable getting rid of Hazard, I guess, because he can kind of offer not the same, but something similar in the same team. You can still benefit from the fixtures. So because that's the same process that went through my mind as well. It was, Hazard was the one who went when I needed to change things up. And Alonso just kind of feels like a backstop, doesn't he?
I go back again to Aguero because that's when I sold Hazard initially. I wanted City cover, and not having Aguero forced me to look elsewhere. And as Brett rightly said, Sterling was doing fantastically. So having Alonso, again, as you guys just said, I decided I would swap Hazard for Sterling and get Aubameyang up front. So again, thanks Aguero. Okay, we've got another question here at FPL_Rich would like to know who in the panel, very, very professional. Who in the panel's opinion is the best cheap defensive enabler right now at 4.4 mil or less? He has Jupe and Bennett already, but are there any other options? He's considered Chambers, Obi-Wan, Fernandes, but if we had to pick one with the fixtures, which would it be? I don't mind going first on this one because I'd like to throw Schindler into the mix. He's played 90 minutes of every match except for one where he played 70 minutes, 1 goal and 1 assist, and only 2 yellow cards, which is good, obviously, at the moment when there's other people who were quite close. And they have quite good fixtures until the end of January. So you could consider Schindler. Now, I know...
Schindler's List, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Schindler's on your list.
He's on my list.
Schindler on the watch list, yeah.
On the Christmas
Schindler's
list.
watch list.
So I know that Kurt already owns him. So Kurt, what's your opinion on...
No, he sold him for Son.
It's not everyone for
It
Son.
wouldn't surprise me. I've actually gone 5 at the back this week. All 5 of them are Heung-min Son. So going
Every
strong
time
at
we
the
talk
back.
about a player, I can just hear Kurt's mouse click twice. Just
Oh, okay. Salah, you say? Who's this Salah transferring?
click,
No.
click.
You dare after me joining you. You better stick with me now.
I've dragged someone in and I've just...
Yeah, I need
Bloody way.
need somebody in this pit of despair.
No, I like the looks of Schindler. I mean, I haven't gone near any Huddersfield players before because for the first 10, 15 game weeks, they've been utterly pants. And that hurts me to say, seeing as I want as many Northern teams as possible up there, despite not being from there and not sounding like I'm from there. But I do like Schindler. He made it into my team just purely because I think Huddersfield are getting better. And that's an improvement. Granted, 3 clean sheets is terrible. But he's a defensive enabler. 4.3 I got him in for. He's now 4.4. You're looking at the fixtures. You're looking next 2 game weeks, Southampton and Newcastle at home. If they're going to get clean sheets, I mean, that Southampton one's definitely. That Newcastle one, you're thinking very potentially. And it is, if Huddersfield go back to what they did best, which is just being strong against teams and trying to battle their way through games, they can do it. But it's just about whether they can. Another one, actually, that I did notice after I made the transfer, I think someone said it in the chat earlier as well, is 4.2 million Kiko Firmino, who seems to have found himself in the first team for Watford.
At home
The only
Cardiff this
negative
week as well.
Yeah, but the only negative to that is...
For Watford.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going with. It's their pants. Conceded 9 goals in the last 4 game weeks. He's only had 2 clean sheets that he's been credited for. So I think Watford in total have only had 3 as well. So yeah, that's the only negative, is that they are pants. But I think you're more likely to get some action with Schindler if you can get the extra 0.2. But if it's just the points you're after, maybe a potential good score from Firmino. He's at least going to play at the moment, by the looks of things. So, but I would definitely go with Schindler. I do think he looks a lot better. And if Huddersfield start improving, his price, I think, could skyrocket.
Yeah, and what are your thoughts, David? Because obviously he's quite maxed out on the cheapers there with Jupe and Bennett already.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, he must be going very light in defence if he's got those 2 and he needs another 4.4 enablement. So.
Yeah, Schindler looks great. The only thing I should say about him is that he's really good for bonus as well. So if they are going to keep clean sheets, I had him for like the first, I think maybe 6 weeks of last season when they were just just sticking to the basics and trying to keep clean sheets. And I got loads of bonus out of him. I had loads of 9-point hauls in games. They drew or they won 1-0, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
somebody in my mini leagues got him and he keeps killing me every week with Schindler's List.
But, yeah, sticking with Huddersfield, the other one to look at is probably the fullback, Chris Lerver. He's the same price.
Lerver.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of when we're looking for cheap defenders, and if I've got 2 that are the same price and one's a centre back and one's a left back or right back, I tend to go with the full back because of course there's more attacking threat. He's on some set pieces as well, and he's back from injury now as well. He's got 2 assists this season, and with that run, the teams that they're playing are not only not very good at scoring goals, they're very good at conceding them. Newcastle, Southampton, and of course they've got Burnley game week 21 as well. So always keep an eye out who's playing them. It's a really nice run. So, yeah, I can only echo what we've already said about Huddersfield, but also just let people know that, yeah, the fullback who's on corners and is always in very good attacking positions is the same price. So, actually, if there's a choice between the 2, I go for the fullback, Chris Love.
Nice. Anything to add, lads?
I just quickly, I think Kurt's shout of Firmino, I really like that one. Just looking at Watford's fixtures now. Now, assuming you've got quite a few different options in defence, a few different budget options, and you're going to rotate them. If you could, afford to rotate Firmino, his next 3 home games, Cardiff at home, Newcastle at home, and then Burnley at home.
He's got Chelsea before Newcastle at home.
He has, but they're the away fixtures. So if you can rotate them and you just play him for the home fixtures, for example, at 4.2 million, Cardiff, Newcastle and Burnley is the next 3 home fixtures. And Watford are quite good at home, you know. So for 4.2 million, that's not a bad shout, you know. I don't know who else to mention. I mean, I heard about this question earlier and... I mean, I looked at Alberto Moreno, but because of all the injuries that Liverpool have got, and he's 4.2 million. But I think Milner will fill in at right back probably, like he has. I don't think he trusts Moreno, and with Robertson playing left back, Moreno hasn't really got a chance, has he? So, yeah, I mean, some other people have been talking about Callum Chambers because he's playing in a forward role, but then again, Fulham are just shipping goals so much, aren't they? So, from an attacking perspective, he's getting lots of goal attempts. He's playing in midfield. But I still don't like him as an option, you know. So for many, especially this game we got home to Cardiff, if you're looking for a budget defender, I quite like that shout. It's a good one.
Yeah, Cardiff have the fewest number of away goals in the league this season, and I think it's 3. And their most recent one was just that one they bundled past Fabianski that just ruined it for everybody. And it just came out, but the whole point, it came out of nowhere. So really, you're not expecting that to happen again. So yeah, I agree. Actually, yeah, this week could be good for clean sheets for Watford.
Cool. Here's one for Jay. At Starsy J would like to know if now is the time to sell Richarlison for Son as the fixtures turn. So we've got Richarlison's got City, Spurs and Burnley, and in the last 4 he's got 2 goals, and Son has got Burnley, Everton and Bournemouth last 4, 3 goals, 2 assists. What do you reckon? Is now the time to switch them up?
Well, I mean, fixture-wise, definitely, but I think it depends on what train of thought you're going with as far as rotation, because there's 2 trains of thought with Son. He's played the 4 games in a row. He's going to get rested at some point. There's going to be rotation in that Spurs side because they've got a strong squad. But then there's also the case of, well, they know they're not going to have him in January, so why not play him as much as possible now? And then that gives other players rest for later on in the season. Whereas Richarlison, you're pretty sure he's going to at least feature or play in every single game. No matter what the fixture is, how easy it is, how bad it is, he is one of Everton's main players. So if you want that security during a very busy schedule, then probably Richarlison is the safer pick. But I look at Son right now and think he's not featured that much in the beginning of the season compared to some of the other players. So he's not going to have as much fatigue to deal with, not as much just general, the fact that he's not been playing as many games, and they know they're not going to have him. I think they'll use him as much as possible, especially with the form he's currently in. If I was a manager and I had players in form like that, I would be playing him as much as possible.
Yeah.
And now Champions League is out of the way, I can't see him not having a good majority of minutes. So for me, Son is a better choice than Richarlison.
Cool. All right. Brett, have we got any more questions in the chat?
Yeah, lots more questions. There's a question from Seko here, and he wants to talk. It's a good one for you, maybe, Nim. Wants to talk a bit about Torreira. Obviously, you know, he's delivering quite a lot of points to the surprise of a lot of people. Obviously, a quality player, but not a player I thought would be, you know, racking up FPL points, but he has done it for a few weeks now. Do you think he's a good budget midfielder, or is this just a flash in the pan?
I think he's a good budget midfielder, but I actually considered getting him this week for Hughes, and it's between him and Snodgrass. However, I have decided to err on caution and not go with him because he's only one off the yellow card ban.
Very good point.
So for me, I've decided I'll probably, if I'm going to do anything, it'll be Hughes to Snodgrass and double up in West Ham midfield. Yeah, taking a bit of a risk, I know. But yeah, I need to do something there really because Hughes just is injured, and even when he's not injured, he's not doing very well. Yeah. But yes, long term, Terrier's definitely going to be an option. Cheap midfield. He's away into that Arsenal midfield, and now he's, as you said, started to find his scoring form. I think he'll definitely be one sneaking into our second wildcard teams.
Yeah, it's a really good point about the yellow cards, actually, because he is the sort of player that will pick up yellow cards as well. His style of play, lots of tackles, crunching tackles, breaking up play. So that's a really good point. So, yeah, Seko, if you're still watching, he's on 4 yellow cards, so 1 away from a one-match ban. So that's a really good point, Nim. But yeah, like the positive of him, like you say, maybe once we get past that ban, he is like nailed. He's like the main man at the moment, isn't he? He's playing so well. You kind of know he's going to start every game. And I watched, because I'm a bit of an Arsenal fan myself, and I watched some clips of him when we signed him, and he sometimes even takes free kicks, and he's got a few free kicks in him, and so he does know where the goal is. He can pop up with a few, and some of the goals he's taken recently have been, very, very well taken. So for 4.9, yeah, it's a good option.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, he's actually had more shots in the last 4 game weeks than Salah and Sané.
Wow!
So they're not in the
incredible.
right places. They're not. Those 2 players have had more in the box. But I was thinking, is he one of these guys who's literally had 3 shots and 3 goals? Because sometimes you get that, don't you? You get some guy who just
like
has a
Kante.
run. Yeah, or like Xhaka a little bit last year as well. Because it's just from outside the box, isn't it?
Fernandinho.
Yeah, you get these guys that just kind of defy the stats. But with Torreira, he has actually had a fair number of attempts.
That's really interesting.
So, and then of course, but the thing is that we've seen him get in the box quite a lot, haven't we? Because I'm pretty sure 3 of those goals have been him kind of getting in there and almost doing so the goal he scored against Huddersfield, he basically did Lacazette's job, right? He was the guy that was just poaching and waiting for someone to put the ball in. So, a prediction that he could be the go-to sort of like 4th or 5th midfielder on the second wildcard. That come true.
Especially given the fixtures as well. It's a shame about those 4 yellows, really, because those fixtures do look great. If he's going to score against the smaller teams, I mean, they've got plenty of games against the smaller teams. So,
yeah, it's definitely made me a bit nervous because, as you say, he's not afraid to get in on a tackle, and just the way my team is at the moment, because obviously I've got Wilson and Hogg that are both yellows and oranges and traffic lights.
Jonathan Hogg could get booked in training. He's one of those guys that just hates everybody.
I downgraded Billing to Hogg in order to free up the 0.1 for Sterling, so that's why I have Hogg. But yeah, I think it's a risk.
He's nailed on. I totally get why you have him, because he is Mr. Huddersfield, but he's dirty.
So yeah, maybe bringing in Terrier as well is probably, I might want to just leave that a bit longer and see how that plays out for sure.
His problem is he's short as well, so I mean he can't even win headers against people.
Let's not be dissing short people here.
But just want to say I'm really short. I'm shorter than most people think, but the point is, because he's short, he's going to get booked more often because he can't compete. He can't compete aerially. So if it's a case of win the header or nut the bloke, he's going to nut the bloke, isn't he? Because he's short to do it. So
if it's our only option, we're tiny. We have to do something.
Tall as Patrick, but that's just his only shortcoming.
Cool. Do we have another question there then, Brett?
Yeah, there's one from Captain's Pick, FPL podcast. So what I'm going to do, I'll quickly go around. I'll say your guys' names, and you'll just give me a 1-name answer, okay, for this question. And then once we've all done it, we can kind of open up the chat about what we think. He wants to know who's going to score more points over the next 5 game weeks, Salah or Sterling? And he also says Merry Christmas. So Jay, Salah or Sterling for the next 5 game weeks?
Sterling.
David?
I'm going to say Salah just to mess it up.
Kurt?
Well, we don't need to go here. Sterling.
I'm going
to Kurt's side. Oh.
I'm going to equal it up
Bad
and
side,
say...
Jay. Bad side.
I'm going to equal it up and say Salah because I don't own him anymore. That's why.
So it's 2-2. I'd have to say Salah, personally. I would. I mean, look, I know historically this United game is very cagey. Liverpool United recently. Mourinho will shut up shop, 0-0s. At least I think they have recently. They've kind of been those kind of games. But, a lot of injuries in the United defence. Salah's coming off the back of a hat-trick, a goal in the Champions League. Look, I know he could blank, but that's a very nice fixture, I think, at home to United, personally. And then Newcastle in game week 18 or 19. There's still some nice fixtures there for Salah. With Sterling, it's maybe Mahrez, maybe Sane coming in. So I've got both of them, but I think Salah will do it over the next 5. Anything else for anyone else think different?
I think the key, I agree with you, and I think it will be close, but I think it just comes down to rotation, because I think, You think about what Pep is like. He rotates at the best of times. If 2 games are 2 weeks apart, he'd still be like, I'm going to change the team because I don't want him playing so many minutes. And then at the end, he'd be like, so happy anyway. This is what he likes to do. So if he's like that anyway, over Christmas, he's going to rotate the heck out of that team. So I just can't see Sterling playing every single game over Christmas. And I'm not saying I think Salah will play every game, but I think he'll just play a lot more minutes over Christmas than Sterling. I think that's what it boils down to. Really just comes down to I just think Salah will play a lot more than Sterling will.
Good point.
Yeah.
Cool. And we'll take one more before heading out to our last questions.
Okay. Let's have a look. All right. So I'll give this one to Jay first. Sheriff wants to know what players do you see being in form for the next 3 game weeks, Jay?
Well, I don't really think in 3 game weeks.
No, not in 3 game weeks time, but over the next 3 games.
I usually look at like 5, 6, 7, but I really still like West Ham's fixtures. Fulham, Watford, Southampton in the next 3. Anderson, Snodgrass. Potentially, even if Chicharito does continue to start, he could be someone that could get some points. Chelsea have good fixtures as well. If I had to go with an informed player and just pick one, I would probably be tempted to go Anderson just because, again, it's a player I don't think is going to be rotated. Looks like he's settling into that West Ham side.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think also, I'm not sure what his ownership is right now, but
15%, I think.
15%. He's one of those players.
I'm in the 15.
If he does do well, he's one that can make a real difference. I think you've got to realise that a lot of the players we talk about a lot of the time are quite highly owned. And yes, if you don't own them, it's going to really hurt you. But the players you own that everyone else owns, unless you're captaining them or not captaining them, it doesn't make a huge difference on your rank. A lot of the times it's the players like Anderson or Richarlison or players like that that can make a huge difference just because they're not as owned by everyone around you. So I'm going to go out of left field here and go Anderson. Although I'm a bit disappointed in the fact that I haven't mentioned Son, who I will be bringing in. And I'm even thinking of maybe captaining him for that Spurs game.
Ooh.
Wow, nice. Big call. Live on stream. Got to do it now.
Yeah. Do it.
I've been thinking about it all week. I might as well.
So, Kurt, you're on your wild card. So obviously you're picking players that you think are going to do well over the next few weeks. So any players that is there any player that's concrete in your wild card now for the next 3 game weeks, would you say?
In terms of new, or can we include old as well?
It could be anyone. Who is like nailed on in your wild card? Like they're staying there for this wild card now.
Obviously, I've brought Son in, and I think he's looking all right. One player that I do, if I could find a way of bringing him in, I've sort of covered that sort of avenue if needs be. I've got, as a part of an enabler, I've brought in Kamara from Fulham because I feel he's getting a bit of time on the field now. He took a penalty against Man United, albeit in a 4-1 defeat, but he was on penalties. There, which shows something. He also scored against Leicester, played 90 minutes against Leicester, 45 also against Chelsea and Man United to take off
new
the
manager
last 3.
Probably fancies him a bit,
But if I was to have enough money, I quite like the looks of Mitrovic for the next few game weeks. I think new manager, I think potentially back in form, looks good. 2 goals and 1 assist in the last 4. I think look at the fixtures as well. I think Mitro could sort of shake the pack up again and play like he was in the first couple of game weeks, because we saw what he could do and the chances have been there. It's just Fulham were awful.
Why did he get subbed in that game? He got subbed at half time, didn't he?
Yeah,
I think it might have been to avoid him getting booked, because I think they were already 3-0 down, right? And
okay.
So he's another one on this yellow card list.
Yeah, so no one really knows exactly why. There wasn't an injury, so and tactically it doesn't make a huge deal of sense. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just Ranieri saying, you know what, it's not going to happen. Mitrovic is in my team actually currently, so I think he'll do well. And West Ham can't keep clean sheets, so yeah, next game week looks nice. But what I really like, game week 18 away at Newcastle. Just imagine what he can do there and what he would love to do there.
Yeah,
because I just think that is going to be we'll talk up and say we'll go to St James's Park, bag a hat trick and do that in front of the Gallagher. But no, he'll kick someone in the head and get sent off on it. So don't give him a chair, he'll get sent off.
Yeah. Cool.
Nim, any players you think about them for the next 3 game weeks that you think are good picks?
I think Hazard is obviously quite a good one, and who else? I have to agree with Jay. Actually, I've been with the West Ham lads. To be honest, just that their run of fixtures pretty good, and they seem to have found a lot of form. So, and Schindler, since I mentioned him earlier. Okay, I will finish us up now with some Christmassy questions, which have nothing to do with FPL. So, David, here on the Wildcats, we always have some random questions at the end of the stream that have nothing to do with FPL for the sake of it. So, at Who Got the Assist gave us both our non-FPL related questions this week. And first up, I want quick, snappy answers, please. Just one word answers. Would you rather give or receive gifts? Of course, gifts. and I will. I'll start
Is this
with
after the watershed?
Jay on this one.
Why do you always start with me every single time? I'd rather give.
Cool. And Kurt?
I'd receive. I don't like anyone. No, give. I'd rather give. I like seeing people happy.
Indecisive as always, David.
I would have said receive until I had kids, and it sounds a bit wishy-washy, but it's quite nice seeing the smile on their face when you give them something. So yeah, they've changed my life. I'll say give.
Oh, and
your kids are nicer
Brett?
than mine then.
A full house, got to be give for me.
Yeah, same here, definitely. Okay, and secondly, and our last question, if you could be a reindeer, which one would it be? Do I need to run through which reindeers there are?
Yes.
Okay, so we've
know
got
one.
Rudolph, Dasher and Dancer, Prancer and Vixen, Comet and Cupid, Donner and Blitzen. There you go. So, David, go on, I'll go through this.
Yes.
So that I don't upset Jay.
So hopefully you guys have all done your research like me, because I went and read up on all of those, having received the list.
What are the stats like?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Vixen, box in the box, tell you that. Yeah. 8 shots in the box last 4 Christmases. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Last 4
When I went
Christmases.
What I found out about Blitzen was it comes from the German word meaning lightning, obviously, as that's the Blitz during the war. I like to think that I have an electrifying personality that rubs off on other people. And my favourite, one of my favourite Marvel characters of recent films is the Mighty Thor. So if I could pick anyone who's related to a bit of lightning, it had to be him. So I'm going with Blitzen.
Wow, that was the best answer. I was
Yeah.
not
I
expecting
should
to
have left
pick
you to
that.
last.
How are we going to compete with that?
I'm going Rudolph.
Brett.
Yeah, I think I would go Comet because I'm very much into astronomy, planets, space. That fascinates me. So Comet seems like a good one.
Cool. And Jay.
I'd go with Dancer, because if you've been a fan of my channel for a while, you may know why. That's all I'll say about that.
No, come on.
You search, you'll find some videos.
He's a good little wiggler, is Jay. Let's just put it that way. And Kurt?
I was going to go with Dancer, but I feel like I'm copying now, so
He's gone for Son.
I've gone for Son. I'll go with Prancer, because I always find myself, as silly as it sounds, sort of prancing about the place, not really knowing what I'm doing. So I think it sums me up quite nicely.
Sounds like before we start streaming, Kurt.
Exactly.
Brilliant. I'm going to go Vixen. I'm wearing my foxy top tonight, so that kind of works. And apparently Vixen means like spirited or quarrelsome woman. So that pretty much sums me up.
That's kind of 2 opposites there, really, isn't it?
Well, remember, 8 shots in the box last 4 Christmases. So it's not
Yeah, exactly. I'm smashing it. You lot don't stand a chance. Brilliant. Cool. Thanks, guys. And thank you all for joining us on this Christmas special stream. And I'll hand you over to Jay to wrap us up.
Okay, so we did have some poll questions. So I'll quickly just cover them as I wait for my screen to refresh. I did try refreshing it before you got to me. But just not quite there. I'll get better at it. I'll have it ready next time.
Yeah.
I know one of the questions was about Salah. But yeah, should Salah smile more when he scores? That was thanks to Nim for that one.
Yes,
I personally think maybe it's just steely determination and like an expectation of himself to score more. But we got whatever keeps him scoring at 42% winning that. So no one cares as long as he keeps scoring. But 28% did say yes, they'd prefer to see him smile a bit more when he scores. Who to captain for Game Week 17? The options I put up were Kane, Sterling, Aubameyang and Hazard. And Kane won out with 73%, Aubameyang coming in with 13, Sterling and Hazard 6 each, and no one voting other. So those are literally what everyone watching the Wildcats is thinking, those 4. And then keep or sell Salah. And we've got 35% saying keep, 42% saying sell, and wait and see 21%. So a very mixed bag with that one. So thank you guys so much for voting in the poll questions. Also, please check out all the links in the description down below, including David's links as well to his Twitter and, of course, to the Fantasy Football Scout website. Also, make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this stream, and make sure to keep up to date with us at FPL WildCats so you know next time we're streaming, and we will catch you guys next time. Merry Christmas as well.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas.